Have you ever heard the one about the alligators living in New York sewer? The story goes like this. A family went on vacation on Florida and bought a couple of baby alligators as a present for their children. Then returned from vacation to New York, bringing the alligators home with them as pets. But the alligators would escape and find their way into the New York sewer system where they started reproducing, grew to huge size, and now strike fear into sewer workers. Have you heard this story? Well, it isn't true and it never happened. But despite that, the story has been around since the 1930s. Or how about the song Twinkle Twinkle Little Star? Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, how I wonder what you are. Well, we've all heard this song. Where am I going with this? Where am I going with this? Well, both the song and the story are example of memes. Example of memes. And that's what we will talk about, the theory of memes. A meme is defined as a piece of information copied from person to person. By this definition, most of what you know, ideas, skills, stories, songs, and memes, all the words you know, all the scientific theories you've learned, the rules your parents taught you to observe, all are memes that have been passed on from person to person. So what? You may say, passing on ideas from one person to another is nothing new. Well, the whole point of defining this familiar process as transmission of meme is so that we can explore its analogy with the transmission of genes. As you know, all living organisms pass on biological information through the genes. What's a gene? A gene is a piece of biological information that gets copied or replicated, and the copy or replica is passed on to the new generation. So genes are defined as replicators. Genes are replicators that pass on information about the properties and characteristics of organisms. By analogy, memes also get replicated and in the process pass on cultural information from person to person, generation to generation. So memes are also replicators. To be a successful replicator, there are three key characteristics: longevity, fecundity, and fidelity. Let's take a closer look. First, longevity. A replicator must exist long enough to be able to get copied and transfer its information. Clearly, the longer a replicator survives, the better its chances to get its message copied and passed on. So longevity is a key characteristic of a replicator. If you take the alligator story, it can exist for a long time in individual visual memory. Let's say my memory. I can tell you the story now or 10 years from now, the same with the Twinkle Twinkle song. So these members have longevity because they are memorable for one reason or another. Next, fecundity. Fecundity is the ability to reproduce in large numbers. For example, the common housefly reproduces by laying several thousand eggs. So each fly gene gets copied thousands of times. Memes as well. Memes, well, they can be reproduced in large numbers as well. How many times have you sung the Twinkle Twinkle to someone? Each time you replicated the song and maybe passed it along to someone who didn't know it yet. A small child maybe. And finally, fidelity. Fidelity means the accuracy of the copying process. We know fidelity is an essential principle of genetic transmission. If a copy of a gene is a bit different from the original, that's called a genetic mutation. And mutations are usually bad news. An organism An organism, an organism often cannot survive with a mutated gene, and so a gene usually cannot be passed on unless it's an exact copy. For memes, however, fidelity is not always so important. For example, if you tell someone the alligator story I told you today, it probably won't be word for word exactly as I said it. Still, it will be basically the same story, and the person who hears the story will be able to pass it along. As the memes are replicated with higher fidelity though, like the Twinkle Twinkle song. It has the exact same words 20 years ago as it does now. Well, that's because we see songs as something that has to be performed accurately each time. If you change a word, the jazzer will usually bring you in line. They'll say, that's not how you sing it, right? So you can see how looking at pieces of cultural information as replicators, as memes, and analyzing them in terms of longevity, fidelity, and fecundity and fidelity, we can gain some insight about how this spread persists or change.